Warning, this is an endgame build and shows footage from Act 3. Before we continue, I did want to say I have a poll in our community tab here on YouTube that does have 3 requested builds that I am going to be making. So go ahead and vote there, that way we know for sure which build is going to be up next, and comment down below on this video other type of builds you would like to see, and I will try to make one for you in the future. Do you like insane mobility? What about having the option to run around like a choo-choo train and knock all your enemies prone? Do you like hitting on average 35 to 40 plus damage without a crit? I have the perfect build for you. I'm Blood Ronin and welcome to my Barbarian guide. Okay, so for this build, before we actually break it down and we talk about stats, I do want to say Orc is the #1 race you would want to be for this build, especially if you go more on the crit side of things. That being said, you don't have to use Orc, it's just what I think fits the kind of like theme with you being a raging barbarian. They got really nice racials, built-in darkness vision. They have their savage attack, so when you crit, you roll another dice, and stacking that with brutal critical from this build adds even more. They also have the ability to basically cheat death once per long rest. An attack that would normally bring you down to 0 will instead bring you down to 1 HP. It is very, very powerful, and in my opinion, they are the best. However, they are not needed. You can easily do some great damage and really have some fun with pretty much any race in the game for this. Orcs is just my favorite. So before we break down the stats, I do want to say one thing. The elixir giant hill strength does exist, and that will give you 21 base strength until your next long rest. You can farm the materials for it super easy, and you can straight up just steal it from anti-Ethel, 3 of them per long rest. It's insane. You can stock up on those super early, and it really makes kind of like build diversity that much better. That being said though, if you don't want to go that route, you don't have to, but I do want you to think about that, because if you do that and you can get the anti-Ethel potions, like the giant hill strength potions, pretty much within like the first 45 minutes of the game, you're going to want to put 0 points into strength because the potion will instantly give you 21 strength. However, if you don't go that route and you would prefer to actually use strength as you level up, then this is the stat spread I would recommend you do. Put 2 points into strength, get that all the way up to 17. Put your 1 into constitution, put that all the way up to 16. Reason for that is constitution, because you are a barbarian, you have unarmored defense, so you will gain additional AC equal to your constitution modifier. So from this alone, you'll automatically have +3 to your AC just from your essential HP stat, I guess you could say. The rest of the stats is going to be up to you, but I would highly suggest you start putting points into dexterity. It is really going to help out your AC a lot. I do want to note one thing here before we continue. Later on, when we get to the endgame section, when it comes to the endgame gear, you have the option to use the Hill Giant Strength Potion, or not potion, but gloves, which will automatically set your strength to 23. When you get those, you want to respec your strength. And there is a neck piece that will automatically set your constitution to 23 as well. So once you get those at Act 3, and you can get those pretty early into Act 3, you would want to completely dump strength and constitution at that point and put it into whatever else you want. There is a way to get to 24 strength in this game. If you use the potion from Act 2 from Moonrise Towers and combine it with the additional stat increase from the Mirror of Loss in Act 3, you can technically get your strength to 24. That is very specific though, and for those that don't want to go through all that and just want to have fun, that's what the rest of this guide is going to be about. So my stat spread looks like this. You don't have to do it like this. It's really going to be up to you. If you'd prefer to use anything else, feel free, but this is what I'm recommending for people that just want to try the build out and have fun. When it comes to your background, really you want to pick whatever you want. I went with Soldier because I think it fits the theme a little bit better than the others, but you don't have to. Skill proficiencies here, I say definitely have Perception. You definitely want that because you don't want negative perception. You want at least some points into that. And I did Athletics just because I think it's nice to have and it fits. Okay, so when it comes to leveling, no matter what, you want to get at least 6 points into Barbarian right away. So at level 2 Barbarian, you get Danger Sense, which is nice to have. You just gain advantage on dexterity saving throws against trap spells and surfaces. It's okay, but it's not too bad. To gain this benefit, though, you can't be blinded or incapacitated. This is decent for kind of like going through dungeons, but if you already have someone that can basically disarm traps and whatnot, like a rogue, for example, this kind of becomes useless. But at level 2, you get Reckless Attack, and this is amazing because you can choose to attack like this, and when you attack, it gives you advantage, so you roll 2 dice, and it will pick the higher dice. You can actually have this as a reaction as well, and as a reaction, you can choose to attack, and if your attack would normally miss, you can then, as a reaction, choose this and actually hit the enemy, which is really nice. Okay, at level 3, you get to choose your subclass. We're going with the Wildheart here. I think it's probably the best kind of like Barbarian subclass. Berserker does have some uses, and technically you can make Frenzy Strike work in the endgame. However, I find the benefits of Wildheart just to be substantially better. You get Speak with Animals that you can use every long rest, so no matter what, you can speak to animals, which is great because there's a lot of content you will miss if you don't have that option. And you get to choose a Bestial Heart. So this is where I'm going to break things down for your type of playstyle. Bearheart is literally just you are a tank, you become resistant to all damage except psychic. So normally when you rage, you are resistant to pretty much all physical damage. Well, now you're resistant to everything. Fire, lightning, necrotic. This does everything except psychic damage. So you'll take 50% damage from all of that. You also get the option to heal yourself as an action, which kind of sucks because it's not a bonus action. Like the actual fighter gets a bonus action to heal. This is an action. However, you can use this as an action and then use a bonus action for like a potion to heal. They kind of like double dip, which is nice. Eagleheart is really fun and one I would recommend for a lot of people as you're leveling up, and here's why. You get Diving Strike, which is really great. You take no fall damage, which is fantastic. You basically attack and jump. You have to at least be 5 feet above your enemy. You hit, and it literally makes them go prone. And if you're really, really high up, this can do some incredible damage. It's really fun. Eagleheart has the benefit, though, to actually allow you to essentially dash as a bonus action. You can see that it says dash can be used as a bonus action here, but when you go to run away from enemies, they have disadvantage on opportunity attacks. So even if the enemy gets an opportunity attack on you, with the Eagleheart, they will rarely ever hit. And this will actually pair really, really well with another aspect that you get at level 6 that we'll talk about later. The Elkheart is really nice because this gives you straight up 15 feet movement. This is insane. This is really, really good. Straight up just 15 feet increased movement for you while you rage. This is actually huge because this stacks with other movement effects. I wanted to see how far I could get it. You can get to the point where you have almost 100 movement depending on everything, how you stack. It's really insane. But it also gives you Primal Stampede. This doesn't do a lot of damage, but what's really cool about it is you, with all that extra movement, well, you can use your Primal Stampede and in a line and pretty much knock everyone down, knock them prone, and when the enemy's prone, all attacks against them will have advantage, which is really nice because that means more than likely, not only will you hit and crit because this counts as a weapon action, so you can use this and then attack after, or use this and then use it again if you want to kind of do like a choo-choo train. But this will affect your allies as well when you knock the enemy prone, which is cool. And Elkhart has something else it will stack with really well later on as well, we'll talk about. Tiger Heart is another really fantastic one. So Tiger Heart is actually pretty insane. So this increases your jump distance by 15 feet, which is really nice. And later on, if you take the feat to increase your jump distance even more, Athlete, you get some incredible jump distance. It's really, really cool. But what I really like about it is Tiger's Bloodlust. Normally, your weapon actions are recharged either on a short or a long rest. Most of them have an AoE skill, but once you use it, you can't use it again. Well, Tiger's Bloodlust, you can. You hit 3 enemies in a cone in front of you, and you can make them bleed, which is really, really nice. It's really strong, and this will actually pair even better with something else we'll talk about in a bit. The final one is Wolfheart, and Wolfheart, in my opinion, is not the weakest, but it's not as flashy as the other aspects, I guess you could say. So this gives you Inciting Hail. Basically, it's an action. Allies within earshot of you basically get additional 10 feet during their next turn. So this could be really nice because you could be like, all right, I really want my friend to be able to hit the enemy that's maybe running away that you can't reach. So this would maybe help them do that. But I don't think it's all that great just for that alone. But what is really nice is the fact that they gain advantage on melee attack rolls against enemies within 7 feet of you. That's where it comes really in handy because that makes the rest of your team, especially if you're pretty melee heavy, have even higher chances to hit crits because they're going to be rolling with 2 dice just for you being near the enemy. So that is where this really comes in handy. So pick whichever you want. Just for this example, we are going to go with Eagle Heart here because this pairs really well with something else. My personal favorites are going to be Eagle, Elk, and Tiger. Bear's pretty boring, but Bear just gives you straight up damage resistance. So this may be something you may want to use early on if you find you're getting hit too hard by spells. So we're going with Eagle Heart here. Okay. So level 4, you could change your thing if you want. Feat wise, this is where you have some choices here. Do you want ability improvement to get to like 18 strength and 16 dexterity? This is nice because then in Act 2, as soon as you get the last lights in, you can wear the Mighty Cloth chest piece, which comes from Quartermaster Tally, and that will bump you up to 20 strength. If you prefer not to do that though, Great Weapon Master is another awesome choice because you do have the ability to attack with advantage as a Barbarian. The chances of you actually missing because of the -5 penalty from this is going to be a little bit less. And if you pair that with another character that can like bless you, for example, this would be a great feat to have here. Pick whichever one you want. Great Weapon Master though is a feat you will get no matter what eventually. Okay, so level 5 is really cool because this is when you get extra attack, but you get even more movement. You get additional 10 feet of movement when not wearing heavy armor. And you're never going to wear heavy armor as this build because you're a barbarian. You can't rage while wearing heavy armor, but you can rage while wearing medium or light armor. If you're wearing medium armor or light armor, however, you do not gain any additional bonus to your AC from Constitution, but it's going to be up to you on what kind of armor you like to wear. I'm a big fan of being unarmored. I think it's really fun, and with the gear you get at endgame, you really don't need any type of armor. And this, with the Elk, is even better because now you would have 25 increased movement while raging, and then this is just 10 feet at all times, whether you're enraged or not. Okay, and the reason I wanted you to go to level 6 Barbarian right away is because of the animal aspect. So the animal aspect isn't like the other ones affected your enrage. Well, these are just aspects that just kind of affect you in general. So, aspect of the bear, never ever pick this. This is garbage. Your carrying capacity is doubled, which doesn't matter because more than likely you're going to have some high amount of strength, whether you used a potion or not, which already gives you good enough carrying capacity. Plus, you can send things to your camp, so that's useless. Having advantage on strength checks doesn't really matter because you're going to have high strength anyway. So I find that to be terrible. The chimpanzee one I also find to be pretty bad. You gain resistance to falling damage, which isn't a big deal. If you went Eagle Heart, you're going to be immune to fall damage anyway while enraged, so that doesn't really help out. Throwing camp supplies blinds targets. I mean, that could have some uses, but it also is wasting supplies, so I'm not a big fan. Crocodile is interesting. You gain additional 10 feet of movement speed while standing in water-based surfaces. That could be okay. And while you're on slippery surfaces, you also have advantage on saving throws against being knocked prone. I mean, Crocodile, if you have a pair of boots that or a ring that just makes you ignore certain things, this is useless. So I'm not a big fan of these top three. I don't like those. The bottom ones is where things get fun, though. So aspect of the eagle, you can see in the dark up to 40 feet, and you have advantage on perception checks. Now, this is nice because if you are a race that doesn't normally have dark vision, this just automatically gives it to you. And having advantage on perception checks is pretty nice considering you have really low wisdom. So that's not good. So this could be really nice to have if you, especially playing solo and you want to get that perception check, having that would be nice. But for raw combat, aspect of the beast elk is really cool because this gives an additional 5 feet of movement if you read it. So this is basically like a paladin aura that you just put on, and then anytime you A will affect you at all times, but allies within 60 feet will also gain an additional 5 feet of movement. This paired with the elk mentioned earlier is really nice because then it's 20 feet movement at all times for yourself while enraged, so that's really, really nice. And I like this, especially since in my multiplayer playthrough, a friend of mine was a gnome, so this helped him out when it came to mobility. The honey badger's okay. If you're poisoned, frightened, or charmed at the start of your turn, you have a 50% chance to begin raging without expending a rage charge. It's very situational. I'm not a big fan of it, and because it's only 50% chance, I don't like it. Stallion is amazing. So you know how we mentioned earlier, if you chose Eagle Heart for your rage, how you get dash as a bonus action? Well, this, anytime you dash, you gain temporary hit points equal to twice your level. Keep in mind, you can only have temporary hit points from one source at a time, and at endgame, when you get some gear that gives it to you automatically, you don't want to use this. But until then, Eagle Heart compared or paired with Stallion is a great combo that I use for a majority of my level ups. Following that, you have Tiger. So this is really great because you gain additional strength modifiers to your attack rolls against bleeding or poison targets, and you gain proficiency in survival. Well, that AoE attack we talked about earlier bleeds targets that it hits. So you can use that, and now when you attack that target again, say you use like your extra attack to attack, you have even more chance to hit the target, which is really, really nice, especially if you don't have anyone blessing you. This really helps out to negate that -5 from Great Weapon Master. Wolf is okay. I'm not a big fan of this. You and nearby allies add dexterity modifier, a bonus to stealth checks. I mean, could be good. I'm not a big fan. And Wolverine is pretty nice. When you attack a bleeding or poison target, you maim them for 1 turn. This pairs really well with the Tiger we talked about earlier, because when you do an AoE attack with that, not only will they be bleeding, but now they're maimed, meaning they are incapacitated or they can't move, I guess you could say. It stops their movement completely. So you could do an AoE attack to hit 3 targets, bleed them, and now those 3 targets are literally stuck in place, which is really, really nice. And I'm going to showcase why I really like that combo later on in the video. Because we chose Eagle Heart for the first one, though, I'm going to go Stallion just to keep it simple. Okay, level 7, you gain Feral Instinct. You have +3 to initiative, which is never a bad thing. It means you go usually first, but you can never be surprised. So anytime during combat, normally if the enemy would get the jump on you, you're not going to be surprised. So you can just do your turn at will like you normally would, which is pretty nice. If we will eventually multi-class with Fighter at least 2 points, if you would prefer to go down that path now to get Action Surge right away, it would not be a bad idea, and here's why. So say you wanted to start multi-classing a Fighter. So now you have an option to heal yourself slightly as a bonus action, but you get a fighting style as well. And normally I'm not a big fan of great weapon fighting because you have to roll a 1 or a 2 on your damage dice with a 2-handed melee weapon and it's re-rolled. The exception to that is going to be Great Swords. Great Swords, their damage dice rolls 2d6. So rolling a 1 or a 2 with a d6 is actually really great because it can re-roll each d6. So say you got really unlucky, even though you're rolling 2d6s for your weapon attack, well now if you roll, like say you roll 2 2s, it's going to redo it and always take the higher one. So with Great Swords, this is actually really nice to have. Because you're not wearing armor, assuming you go that route, defense doesn't do anything for you. But if you do plan to wear medium or light armor, defense is another option just to increase your AC. Okay, and of course, at level 2 Fighter, your character level now is level 8. You get Action Surge. Everyone knows how great that is. You use it once per short rest, and you just gain an additional turn. This, in combination with extra attack, will literally allow you to attack twice, Action Surge, and attack twice again. This is really, really powerful because you could constantly do your AoE attacks from Tiger's Bloodlust, like that Tiger attack, and just AoE 4 times. You could use this to get away. The uses for Action Surge is really big, which is why I always like putting at least 2 points into Fighter, because I'm not a big fan of the final things you get from Berserker, or Barbarian I should say. Okay, so you could go level 3 Fighter here if you wanted, and it wouldn't be a bad idea because you could get maneuvers. You could go Champion, and this will give you even more crit, and this would be really nice because this will really help out a lot when it comes to critting even more. Assuming you went half orc, getting this right away is just going to give you another 5% chance to crit. So no matter what, you're going to be at a 10% chance to crit. And when you do crit, you're going to roll another dice to add to that crit damage. You could go this route, or you could go the rest of your points into Barbarian and get a second animal aspect. That's going to be up to you. My personal favorite endgame build, however, does go at least 3 points into Fighter to get the Champion subclass. So I'm just going to do that now. Okay, so now we're going to start putting the rest of our points into Fighter. Alright, Barbarian level 8 is really nice because you get Land Stride, difficult terrain. You literally no longer, like, you're not going to be slowed down from difficult terrain, which is really, really nice. And in combination with the extra movement you already get, you can move around a lot. Combine that even more with a ring or with the elk, and you were just moving all over the place. But here you get an extra feat. So this is when you can choose to either do ability improvement if you wanted to get your abilities up. If you are going to end up respecing your stats later on, which I would highly recommend you do, you could go something like Athlete, for example, because this will increase your jump distance by 50%. And when you are knocked prone, it takes less movement to get up. And this is a way to get your dexterity up or your strength, whatever you want to do. I would say for those that aren't at endgame though, just popping that in there to get your stats up is never a bad thing, and once you respec later on, you can do what you want. Okay, and then at level 9 Barbarian, this is when you get brutal critical. So when you land a critical hit, you roll an extra damage dice as well as the normal additional crit dice. And if you happen to be a half-orc, this stacks with the additional dice you get from the half-orc racial right here, Savage Attacks. So it's even more crit dice, which is really, really insane. And if you happen to go the medium armor route, there's even more crit gear you can get to stack. I didn't for my endgame build, but it is an option. Of course, when it comes to endgame gear, the number one weapon you're going to use is the Balduran's Giant Slayer. This greatsword is an absolute monster. So because it is a legendary weapon, you get weapon enchant +3. So no matter what, you get a +3 chance to hit and +3 damage at all times, which is really nice. But because you're at 23 strength, and ignore the 27 I have here, that was from a potion. But because you're normally at 23 strength as this build, this will give you even more. So normally your modifier with 20 strength is +5. Well, at 23, it's going to be +6. So that stacks with the weapon enchant, giving you +9 to damage and a hit at all times. It gets even better though, because on hit, assuming you hit the enemy, it doubles the damage from your strength modifier. So it will actually give you, on hit, 12 damage raw just from your strength, on top of the weapon enchant as well. Just take that into account. Without even adding in any additional modifiers from rage or anything else, you gain 12 raw damage. With rage, assuming you went 9 points into Barbarian, it's another +3, plus the weapon enchant. Yeah, that's a lot of damage just from that alone, on top of the additional 2d6. But it also has Giant Form, which you can use once per short rest. Giant Form gives you 27 temporary hit points, advantage on strength checks, and adds an additional 1d6 damage to your attacks. So that alone, I mean, this thing is such an incredible weapon, super easy to get. I'm not going to explain how to get it in this video because it is a little complicated depending if you know what you're doing, but you can easily Google how to get it. Really, really fantastic. Of course, we are going to be using the Bone Spike boots, and actually most of the gear is Bone Spike. These are great because you get +1 AC and saving throws as long as you're not wearing any armor or holding a shield, which you're not. Your jump distance is increased by an additional 5 feet. And you have Brutal Leap that you can use as a class action. Basically, it makes it so when you jump, you have a chance to knock your enemy prone, which is just fantastic because it's a bonus action to use. Gauntlets of the Giant Strength. I mean, this just gives you +1 the saving throws for strength saving throws. Not a big deal. We use it because it sets your strength at 23, meaning you can literally have 8 strength when you re-roll, and it doesn't matter, it will automatically set it to 23. The Bone Spike Garb, really great. You can get this really early in Act 3. This gives you 15 temporary hit points whenever you rage. All incoming damage is reduced by 2, and remember, when you enrage, you already take 50% less damage from all physical attacks, so this just adds on top of that. And when you are struck in melee by an enemy, they take 6 piercing damage. This is one of the best things you can get for your Barbarian if you do the no armor route. The Cloak is just Cloak of Protection, gives you +1 to AC and +1 saving throws. There are other options, feel free to use what you like here. I just like it just to stack the extra AC. Bone Spike Helmet. This thing is actually really, really great, and I love this because A, whenever you rage, all enemies that are hostile to you will give you a chance to do psychic damage. Basically, within 10 feet of you when you rage, they must make a wisdom saving throw, or they take 2 to 8 psychic damage, and even if they do receive the saving throw and they basically check it off, they still take half damage from it. It gives you +2 to intimidation, which is nice, and it gives you menacing attack. So normally menacing attack is a fighter maneuver that you could use. Well, this just gives it to you that you can use once per turn. You can use it every single turn that you have. And this is just great because this has a chance to make your enemies become frightened and do additional damage. Works out super well with this build because all the modifiers we were talking about earlier with the greatsword, this just adds on top of it. So I really like this helmet a lot. Neck piece, Amulet of Greater Health. This sets your constitution to 23. Amazing. That's just extra HP and extra AC, assuming you went with no armor. Ring of Regeneration. I put this here because it's just nice to have the extra HP every turn. You just get extra HP. Not needed. Honestly, it might be a little overkill, but I like having it. And this actually did save my life in the Raphael fight, which is pretty cool. You are the melee bruiser of your group, so you might as well have some way to kind of like heal yourself a little bit without using an action. And this just really helps out. I mean, it adds up a lot. And then the other ring I have on this is the Crusher's Ring, just to give you additional 10 feet of movement. So when I was talking about all that crazy movement from earlier, when it comes to Aspect of the Elk, so Aspect of the Elk, 15 movement. Plus this ring, now you're at 25 movement. Plus the 10 you get from being a Barbarian. Plus if you happen to choose a Wood Elf, you get even more movement. It's insane. So I figured because of our mobility, you might as well add to it. The Crusher's Ring isn't needed though. You can put whatever else you want. It's really up to you. And then you have the Dead Shot. This though is really, really great. This just gives you increased critical. So because you already have increased chance to crit from subclassing with fighter into champion, this stacks with it. So this bow has a 15% chance to crit at all times, which is really, really nice. It's nice to have in those turns where you can't reach the enemy for whatever reason, because if you don't attack while you're enraged or get attacked, you lose your enrage. So this is an option just to attack something from afar to keep your enrage going. So assuming you are using the necklace to increase your constitution, and you are using the giant hill strength gloves to increase your strength to 23 base, you can respec all of your stats. And by doing so, you can get to 18 dex, 16 wisdom, and 14 charisma base. And that's with using athlete to increase your dex to 18 from 17 at the start. With the Mirror of Loss, I was able to increase my dex to 20, and that's how I got to 23 strength from the gloves, dex to 20, 23 constitution from the necklace, and everything else which is base while leveling up, which is really, really insane because now, not only do I have 23 AC despite not wearing any armor, I have 158 HP on top of additional HP I get while raging, on top of additional HP you get when using your legendary greatsword. When it comes to ranged attacks, in case I'm not able to get into melee, I have my Dead Shot bow, which has an additional chance to crit, so it has a 15% chance to crit base. And because you have 20 dexterity, it gets +5 to its attack rolls and damage, which is really nice. It's just really, really fun. And with the die I used, I think my character looks pretty cool. So a couple of combat breakdowns. First off here is combat and Raphael. I'm just showing case why I really like Tiger's aspect, I guess you could say. In this scenario, my friend got all these enemies wet, but didn't realize he didn't have haste still, so he wasn't actually able to hit them with a thunder spell. So instead, I decided to use my AoE attack. It hit the targets to make them bleed, but because I also have maim on them from the other animal aspect I chose, they can't move. So now I can get away, and then on his turn, he can zap them for double damage. And this next clip, I'm not really going to talk about. I'm just going to play it to show why I like it. You do some good damage, you have high mobility, and it's really, really fun. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe if you did. Comment down below what you want to see next, and I will see you all in the next build. Bye-bye.
Strike you down.